Hello everyone and welcome, I am Raid, and this is going to be part 2 of the Opera House speed build in The Sims 4. So if you've missed part 1, that video is actually going to go over the actual building of the Opera House and doing the interior layout of stuff. And then in this video, we are actually going to be doing the furnishing and getting everything kind of set up. So we do the stage here, and we do some of the communal areas as well as some of the cast and crew areas. Now this build, like I said in the last video, took me a really long time, and it's such a huge build that not everything is actually going to be covered in this video. I had to cut out some of the stuff that I thought wasn't as interesting because there's a lot of just sitting areas and just hallways and stuff that needed decorated that I didn't really think would be as interesting as some of the rooms and features that I included in the build. So those parts did get cut out. If I hadn't, this video still would have been an hour and a half long, which I thought was just kind of too much. But here we are, we're actually making this cute little area is the kind of ticket box office area. So this is where you come and buy your tickets. And so I thought these windows actually looked really nice. I tried doing a half wall thing that you saw, but I didn't think that really worked out very well. But these windows I thought were cool because they had the little open area at the bottom. And then they have kind of the bars on the windows, to kind of protect the people. Not that in an opera house I really think you need it, but I thought it kind of had that classic kind of old-timey feel to it, which I thought was really kind of cute. And then I put a bunch of different registers along there, and I make this into kind of an office area as well, because I feel like there would be some kind of supervisor or manager there that would kind of monitor the employees or answer questions for patrons or something like that. And then there's also a little locker and seating room area. And then I also duplicate this on the other side of the hallway too, and do another box office kind of ticket place over there. And then in that one, they have more kind of a loungy kind of break room area. But I don't actually show that one in the video. Like I said, they got cut because they're pretty much identical, except where this one has an office, that one just has a couch. So I didn't think that was nearly as interesting or cute as the office. So the office uses a lot of different items from Get to Work, as well as just the lockers and stuff like that, which I thought were really cute. And then I think I put in a bench and some other stuff that was really kind of typical for an office. And I think I even used one of those motivational posters. I think I put it up somewhere in here. But I also wanted to keep it kind of nice looking because I felt like if a patron or customer walks up, they can still see into the area. So I wanted it to look nice. So I kind of tucked all the break room stuff behind the thing, and I eventually put in more of the kind of posters of the show that's currently playing back there along the wall, which I thought in the end was really kind of a cute touch. I thought it looked really good. And so yeah. And then the very next area that we kind of go into here in a second is going to be the coat check, because I figured that, every either, a fancy place, and the fancy thing to do would be to go to get your coat check so you're not carrying it around with you. So I thought that would be kind of cool, and I use a lot of, I tried using those Get Famous walk-in closet kind of items. But because they have shoes and stuff on it, I was that doesn't really make sense for a coat check to have shoes. So I used the kind of just the hanging racks of clothes and different colors and swatches to kind of give that look of that it's a coat check area. And I think I also put in some mirrors and some stuff like that, so that way, when you're getting coat put on, fancy people can check themselves out in the mirror to make sure that they're still looking all good and everything after you put your coats and stuff on. So this little area I thought was kind of cute, and yeah, so it's kind of simple, but I still thought that was a little interesting to kind of look at as a kind of a typical theater area. So one of the things that I also, while I finished doing this part of the build, wanted to say is that if you guys have any tips for me, to please leave them in the comments below. This is kind of my first time doing a speed build, so I don't know if the things that I included, if you wanted to see more of a certain thing, or if the overall speed of the speed build was too fast, because I didn't really know how fast I could get away with speeding it up. I wanted to include a lot of things, so I kind of went faster than I thought I was going to play the video. Then So I don't know if it might be too fast, if it's too hard to follow along. Please comment and let me know. I filmed the voiceover parts for part 1 and 2 of these videos kind of back to back, so I haven't had the chance to like go through the comments from the first video or anything like that before I made the second one. So if there's anything I can do to kind of like make things better, please feel free to mention and comment those things down below. And so here, what you can see me doing now in the build is actually trying to do the kind of grand entrance area. I used these knight statues again, which I thought were really cool. I used them on the outside of the building as part of the building detail, and I also brought them in. I really wanted to use different kinds of statues, but the game doesn't really have symmetrical statues, and I don't like because the ballerina, she has her hands up, in one direction, and I didn't want the left and the right side to, kind of be the exact same, like they're both going in a direction. I wanted to be able to mirror them, and so you can't really do that in the game right now. I wish we could like mirror objects so that way you could get kind of symmetrical looking statues and stuff like that, or entrance areas, but because we don't, I ended up just using the knights because they are symmetrical. They're one of the only symmetrical kind of statues in the game, so that's kind of what I went. I put those ballerina statues in some of the hallways and I think the cafe area, but yeah, I wish there was more kind of symmetrical statues, I guess, in the game. But here we are. I'm actually working on, after the front entry and getting all the flowers and stuff put in there and those knight statues, this is actually beginning to work on the backstage area, so how they get up into like the catwalks and everything behind the stage. And then I think what I'm doing now is looking into the different kinds of curtains that you can put up. I eventually just used the Get Famous ones. I think they're from Get Famous, at least, that we just got, and they just kind of blew them up to a big size. One of the things that I did is I actually clip it through the wall a little bit, and at first, and I left it that way for the longest time because I was like, oh, I don't really mind too much of the clipping. I'll just like wall off where it clips a little bit, and then just kind of deal with it, I guess. But then later on, I kind of thought about it right before I went to go do the video tour or something like that. And I was like, wait, that's going to clip all the way through my building, and it's going to go through the backstage and some of the hallways down on the first floor. So I ended up having to scale back, and I think I scale them down one size and then put like another layer on like the next floor down. So the way that I did it, you saw, was putting the wall up first and then kind of having something so that they'll clip to, so it's easier to place them. And then I actually did it the same way, just on a lower thing, so that way it wouldn't clip through the sides of the wall. And then ultimately, I think it turned out really good. I think I also added some more curtains at the top just to make it kind of drop down a little bit lower, so that way the audience wouldn't be able to see so much of the catwalks and the kind of behind the stage like areas. But then comes the theater part. Now, I intentionally left the stage as the very last thing that I did, because when I started this build, I was like, oh, I really want to do a stage, and I had an idea from the beginning of what I wanted like the stage decorations to look like, and I intentionally left that to the end because I needed the motivation to kind of get through this build. Like I said, it was really big and it took me a really long time, so I didn't want to kind of do that in the beginning and then not be motivated to finish the build. So I kind of left the more fun areas that I thought towards the end. But here I am, I'm actually going through and we're actually putting in the seats for the audience, and I used these red chairs because I thought that was kind of a classic look for a theater. And then like in the little back corner, I also put in like a little control booth area, because in the theaters that I've been in, I've noticed that there's always like a kind of like a little control booth that, can do different things, so that way that the crew members can actually see what's going on stage, because I think it's because it's probably hard to tell what's going on in the front of the stage if you're backstage the whole time. So I put a little control booth there in the back. There's also, I use those a lot, they're all over the place. There's some up in the catwalks, there's some backstage, and so you'll see me put those around the different places. And then eventually, I think here I try to decorate the kind of theater area because I thought it was looking a little bit plain. Like I liked the wallpaper that I chose for this, but I felt like it needed more detail because it just felt like a big square room. And so eventually you'll see that I put in the chandeliers, which are really cool. What I did was, and the reasoning behind how I did the chandeliers, I took the chandeliers from the vampire pack and I blew it up. But as you know, there's candles on those chandeliers. So when you blow up anything that has flame to it, the flame kind of stays the same size. Like when it scales, it doesn't scale with the rest of the item. And so to compensate for that, I kind of scaled up to one size bigger, and then I left another one so that kind of stacked on top of each other. And so the scaled up version's flames and the regular size flames kind of like overlap, so that way you can't see that the flames are just kind of floating there, which I thought was kind of cool. Plus it made them look even more grander, which I thought was appropriate for, the opera. And then for some reason on this little section that I'm working on now, that little balcony area did something weird, so I ended up having to delete it, and then I just put it right back in, or copied one from the other one. And then here's what I mean by decorating the rest of the theater room. I put the curtains everywhere, and I think I end up putting the knight statues in here again, and some shelving, just so that it looks a little bit more, I don't know, there's more detail in it, because I don't feel like theaters are just big open rooms. There's a lot of like the statues and frescoes and different things like that kind of add detail. So that was my way of kind of adding some texture to the walls instead of just having them be these flat kind of plain and boring things. So here we are actually working on putting the upper balconies. I think this is the first upper balcony. I forget what I called it. One of them I called a mezzanine, and the other one I called like a balcony. But I think altogether I think I counted, and there was 487 chairs or seats in the entire like theater area. That includes first floor, second, third floor, and then the little balcony boxes that are kind of like off to the side, which I kind of wanted to somehow find a way to squeeze in like a few more just to get that like rounded to 500 or something like that. But so what I thought when I was making this was a huge like build, and this was a big opera house. 487 seats actually isn't very big at all in terms of like a big theater. Like I think most theaters have like thousands, like 3,000, or you know what I mean, like huge amounts of seats. So it's actually a pretty small opera house considering if you're to compare it like to real life. And eventually I ended up having to rework it and figuring out how I was going to put the rows in for these balconies. Because of the way that they're angled, it didn't quite make perfect sense in how the rows should go, and I didn't know if I wanted to add the walls or not, the half walls that I put in the bottom part to the top one. So it was actually kind of difficult getting all of the chairs to actually kind of line up the way that I wanted to across it. But here I am, I'm actually now putting in more of the curtains, and I think here in a second you'll see that I put in the kind of a fancier shelf for the knights to kind of stand on, which I think in the end actually looks pretty good. Then after this, I think I put in some more of these pillars and do a couple more of the kind of like aisle lighting things, and then I think I move on because, like I said, I didn't want to actually complete the theater, the actual stage part, until the very end, because I wanted something to like look forward to doing. And so after this, I think I move on to other parts of the build. So some of the things that I actually didn't get to like include here is I built lots of bathrooms. There's tons of bathrooms. I think there's at least two bathrooms on each floor. Some of them have more bathrooms than that. Just so that way there is plenty of restrooms for everyone to use, and there's like separate little stalls, and then like kind of a big kind of like sitting room with the sinks, kind of something fancy where people could just lounge, like powder rooms, I guess that's what you would call them. But I don't actually show any of those because they were kind of bathrooms at the end of the day, and they're all kind of the same, and I didn't think that they were nearly as interesting. So I actually didn't really show those too much. I also put in, like I said, a lot of seating areas, decorated a lot of the halls, just the paintings. I used that marble end table, or kind of, I don't know, it's like a side table or end table or something like that, the marble one, a lot in this build. You'll see it if you download this from the gallery. You'll see it used over and over and over again, as well as the flowers that have like the roses that are in kind of the fancy gold vase. I just use those on repeat. So a lot of the items kind of are the same. But actually, some of the other stuff that I did was I put in a bar in the basement, which you can kind of see off camera a little bit. There's like a little bar area. I put that down there because I figured for people that are entering into the lobby, there'd be like a restroom kind of bar area downstairs that they could hang out with, as well as there's another bar that I just duplicated and put on the top floor, on the third floor as well, for the people that are going up to get their seats. They have like a little bar area. And then on the second floor, there's actually a cafe. And I didn't actually show any of this because I didn't want to, like I said, they weren't nearly as interesting as what I thought this kind of orchestra pit that I'm working on here now would be, to kind of like see. Which I actually am pretty excited about the orchestra pit because I think it turned out really cute. So I put in the pianos and the organ and then like the DJ booth, and then I used the kind of like public speaking pedestals here as where the conductor would stand, so that way he could conduct the like orchestra. And I used the different I think these came from Vampires, but that fancy kind of old-timey looking book on the stand, I used it as kind of like for their sheet music where that would be. And then eventually here I think I end up just copying the seats here with the instruments, and I flip it and put it on the other side. But I also like that I scaled up the instruments. So the little violins I scaled up to be like a cello, and all these other different kind of instruments of different sizes. So that way it kind of filled out more of the like orchestra feel, because otherwise it would have just been rows of guitars, rows of violins, and then that would have been it. So I thought that was kind of a cute like little touch. And I also made them all different colors because I figured that each of the players would kind of have their own different instrument, I guess. I don't know if that's true, but in an orchestra, I don't know if they all have to be the same so that way they all look good together or not, but I thought that was just kind of a fun touch. So down here, you will actually see me after we finish the orchestra pit. We do like kind of like cast and crew member area. So I put in like a rehearsal studio, and then there's also like a little lunch room where they can go and take breaks and have their lunches and stuff. And then there's a dressing room, a makeup room, and then the kind of crew and cast bathroom that's downstairs, which I think is really cute. And then here I'm putting in the rehearsal space. And so what I ended up doing was actually putting in another basement, and then using this archway door and then raising it up through the ground so that way we kind of had like these like balance beams for like ballerinas, I think, or stuff like that. So I thought that was a really cool kind of touch. I mean, there are some items that kind of do the same thing that kind of have that, but I really wanted to get something that was a little bit thinner than some of the items were kind of too chunky, I felt like, to actually look like balance beams. So I thought that was kind of a cute little touch to everything. And then so actually what I'm doing now is just I'm pulling out all the different items that I want to use down here, and then I slowly put them into different rooms and try out different things, because I was like, I'm just gonna pull out everything and then we'll go from there. So I used like the Get Famous kind of walk-in closet stuff for the dressing room. And then in the beginning I was going to do dressing and makeup kind of put together, but I ended up separating the makeup room off to the side and having the dressing room be on one side and the makeup room be on the other. And then I used a lot of these like kind of spotlights everywhere just to kind of make it look like, a rehearsal studio where they would have like stage lighting and practice lighting and stuff like that. But then in the rest of this kind of like rehearsal area, I put in like a little lounge kind of seating area in the back, so that way like the people that are rehearsing or other people of the cast or something can kind of have a little area where they could like hang out in between like doing shows or something like that and rehearsals, and just kind of have a place to chill. Or maybe they're, you know, while one group is rehearsing, another group can be like just kind of having a seating area, a place to hang out, and or, you know, place to put their stuff while they're doing all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm not actually into like theater or know how theater actually works, but in my mind, that's kind of what there would be down here. And then I also put in, you know, like I would also have it be kind of like messy. So there's extra like clothing racks and extra clothing hanging up from like production, and then just like different kinds of decorations or like stage props and stuff that they had used in past shows would still be kind of like hanging around, and like equipment, you know, would just be like kind of tucked in every corner, just random things like that, because I figured like their space, because it is like kind of a historic looking place, might be not as optimized as like, you know, a new build or something like that. So they would kind of have to find ways to be smart and kind of like chuck away their equipment to get it all to fit in. You know, that's kind of my thoughts behind it. But then eventually you'll actually see me do kind of a big like storage area that has sets and stuff from like previous productions, and it's just like a catch-all for all of the different like items and stuff that they might use during the different shows that they've had. And I think that's kind of fun too. This whole build, the whole downstairs area was actually a lot more fun than I thought, because at first I was like, I'm not really sure how I want to kind of lay things out or what I want to do with it. But then it kind of came naturally, because I was, like I said in I think the last video I mentioned it a little bit, I typically design with like a character in my head. Like I come up with like their backstory, and then like the more detailed the character in your head is, like the more story that they have, you know, you could be like, okay, this is why these items make sense here. So for most of the like the communal area, the parts where the patrons and stuff would be, has to be like clean and not cluttered, and I like to decorate with a lot of color, so that's kind of a challenge for me. But you know, it'd be a very like standard, like put together way, so that way it looks nice for all the people coming in. But then once we got down here to like the cast and crew, I could be like, okay, these are the kind of people that would be down here. You know, they would be friends, and they'd be like crewmates and castmates and all that kind of stuff. So they would want to be able to have spots where they could hang out, and then they would have extra like memorabilia that they could remember, you know, oh, that show that we did, you know, last time was really, really great, so let's put up some of the fake swords and stuff like that. So it was easier kind of to like decorate for the downstairs crew area than it was for like the communal areas throughout the rest of the build. And I don't know if other people are like that or not, but that's just kind of how I am. I'm like, I decorate with a lot of clutter, and I like to have a reason why, like, you know, items are placed certain ways, or where things would be, and you know, what types of items there are. But anyways, so this is actually the part I was just talking about though, with the kind of big storage area where I just pulled out all kinds of different items. I used, I think I used some of the sets that came from Get Famous, and just scaled them down so that they would fit, you know, down in the basement. And then I used those and kind of put them in here, and then I just grabbed random items and statues and all kinds of things, and just kind of like started tucking and turning things around and putting them in here. I also put in like a woodworking shop, like station thing, because I feel like that's where they would, you know, work on the sets or build the sets maybe and keep their tools. I also put in the gardeners, or the flower arranging station too, because I used the same like rose and vase thing throughout the entire rest of the build, and I figure, you know, the Sims have got to find a place to actually make all of those flower arrangements, so that was kind of the reason why I put that in there. And then I found that bay door, and I really wish that I had thought of that sooner, because I would have used the kind of big bay doors that they, I think, came in Get Famous as well, and tried to find the way to incorporate it. But I was so far into the build, and I was just like, forget it. So I just kind of like gently put it over that wall. So it's not actually like a functional door or anything like that, but I thought it would look cool, because, you know, they would have to have, you know, big sliding, or kind of like garage doors, I think that's what they're called, to kind of get the big set pieces through the hallways and then up to the like actual stage area. And then I also put in some laundry room stuff or laundry day stuff here. And when I was doing that, I was like, oh, I should probably actually put in a washer and dryer so that way, you know, the crew members can wash the costumes and stuff from the shows, or, you know, just have places to wash like the towels and linens from the guest areas and stuff like that. So it was actually a lot of fun to actually just kind of pick any items that I wanted and kind of just shove them into one tiny little area. And that was kind of a really cool kind of feature. I didn't actually know that I was going to do this until, like I said, until later on, but I thought it was kind of a cool idea. And then from here we move on to the actual stage. So we're getting closer to the end, but I work on the catwalk, or like I think that's what it's called, this part up above the stage where they control like the lights, and they work on, you know, pulling the levers and ropes and stuff to like change the set pieces or whatever. Like I said, I'm not actually a theater person, so I don't actually know how these things work, but that was my kind of like imagining of how things go. So I ended up putting a bunch of the different lights from Get Famous up in here. I also used the special effects machines. I think I put those in at a later time, but I ended up putting special effects machines up here so that way you can get the different kind of, like, it's kind of like it drops like confetti, or it can drop like leaves or flower petals or stuff. I never actually used them before because, like I said, I don't really do a whole lot of gameplay, but I thought it was a cool touch. I think I ended up using the glitter for the intro video that was at the beginning of this. So the glitter kind of sparkles down, but there's a bunch of different settings that you can do, and I think you can control them all from those control panels that I was slapping in everywhere. But like I said, I'm not a gameplay person, so I don't know that that's exactly what it does. But this whole upper area ends up being, I think, really cool. And when I'm doing it, I actually realized that I wanted to keep it dark so that way you can't see the catwalk and the behind stage sections from like the audience perspective. So I actually changed the wallpaper out and do a little bit of different stuff and add these steel support beams and stuff that you wouldn't normally see in other areas of the build. So I thought this whole area was really kind of cool and different. Oh. But one of the things that I also like to do and thought would be kind of a cool, like I think I mentioned it maybe in the last video, when I follow a lot of Simmers on Twitch because there's a really good Twitch community of Sims people that do kind of different build challenges and stuff like that. And one of the things that I thought would be really cool, because I don't know that I've seen it, but I haven't been following Twitch people because, like I said, I've only been playing The Sims for about 4 months, so I haven't really been following it for a really long time. But I thought because I was really excited to decorate the stage area, and I thought that could be like a really cool like build challenge for people, would be to download kind of the shell of like a theater, and then they got to kind of like decorate the stage and the scenes and stuff like that. That might be a really cool like challenge for people to do. So or if you want to download this Opera House from the gallery, because it's up there, and my gallery name is actually the same as my YouTube name, so it's Raid Mathal. But if you decide to download it and then you play with it or whatever, and you end up changing the set or changing the show that might be playing, like you go around and then change all of the different posters that are on the outside and inside of the building for the current show, and like change the set around, that'd be really cool to do. I think setting the stage is actually kind of one of my favorite parts of this whole build, because it's like a blank canvas within a blank canvas. You know, you can do whatever you want. But anyways, I think that might be a really cool thing. And if you end up doing that and you want to share it with me, that would also be really cool to kind of like, I don't know, tag me in if you upload it back to the gallery or something like that, and then I could look at it. That'd be really cool too. But back to the build, this is kind of like the employee entrance. So there was those 2 side doors in the back, if you remember from the part 1 of this video, the building. And those entrances actually are for the cast and crew members to come in. So there's like little offices on both sides where like I felt like there would be a person there to operate and kind of check people in, maybe the employees in or something like that, or if people were there for deliveries and stuff, you know. So there's that. And then I also do like a little side stage area. So on one side there's just seating for the cast that's getting ready to go on stage, I think. And then some extra props and stuff like that they might, you know, bring on stage with them. And then on the other side I do another like little clothing rack, and I think I put in there a makeup chair so that way if they needed to do like a quick costume change, they could just go to the side stage and kind of do that real fast. And then after that, I think I actually finally start working on the actual build for the stage. And it was really cool to build the stage. I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I wanted it to be kind of like this kind of fairy tale-esque. I was trying to think of like actual operas, but I couldn't think of really any because I'm not a big opera person. But I thought there would be one that was like in a castle or something like that, you know, and so that's kind of the theme that I went for. And so I knew that I wanted to use a specific item, which I won't spoil until we get to that time. But some of the other things I didn't think about using was, even though I used the sets from Get Famous for the storage area down in the basement, I never thought to use the sets for the actual stage part for some reason. So I think there even is like a rundown like ruin, like castle ruins or something like that, which would have been really good for the whole castle scene, but I didn't end up going with that, and you'll see in a minute what I ended up doing. But right there, that's actually, here's where I realized that the curtains were going to be clipping into the bottom, so I actually kind of reworked the whole curtain situation. I downscaled things and I added another layer of curtains at the top, so that way you couldn't see from the audience up into the catwalks as much. But when I went to go take the video tour and like the screenshots at the end, you could still kind of see up into it. But I didn't feel like that was too big of an issue because you would still be able to if you're there in real life, you know, maybe. So I don't know. If it bothers you, you can always add more curtains or like just scale the ones that I have there that go across the top at least up one more size, and that should solve any problems if you know that bugs you, that you can kind of still see the lights and stuff a little bit from the audience. But here I am, I'm finally doing the stage, and this is the item that I knew I wanted to put in from the beginning. So there it was. I actually tried putting in some of the sets, so I was wrong. I didn't remember doing that, but actually I knew that I wanted to use the toy box from the kids stuff. It's like the kids toy box castle dollhouse type thing, and I knew I wanted to blow it up real big, and that was going to be the castle for my stage. So I knew I was going to do that, and I think it looks really good scaled up like this. I think it looks like a perfect like stage set thing, and you can't really even tell that it's a dollhouse except on the backside, which didn't really bug me too much because I was like, oh well, it would be hollow like this because it's just, you know, a set. It's not actually the castle or anything. But and here I am, I'm actually doing the backdrop. So at first I tried to do wallpaper, and then I found this poster or painting or something, maybe it's a billboard, I'm not really sure what the item is. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. And this is what I think I was thinking of. And I totally forgot that Get Famous added green screens. So you could actually just use a green screen and then set the background to different ones. And there, I even think there is like a kind of meta-weave thing that looks similar to this like painting that I just upscaled. But I thought it worked. And then I added in, you know, different floor patterns. And I was like, oh, I'll put in like a fake little pond with like some blue tile. And then I used the grass paint or grass flooring stuff with the little flowers. And I think it turns out really cute. And I kind of just matched along the paintings with like, there was waves at the bottom of the painting. So then I matched the blue flooring to kind of go with it too. And I thought it turned out really cute. I kind of do add more details to the stage than what actually ends up leaving it. So I think I added like a bunch of other stuff too, but I eventually scaled back on the decorations because I was like, it wouldn't be like an actual building, so it wouldn't have like everything that an actual building would have. So I think I added like a bunch of benches and a bunch of flowers and all this other kind of stuff, and I ended up going back through and taking a lot of that out because I was like, wait, this wouldn't actually be a part of an actual set. So then here I will actually be putting it's actually like a kid's light, but it's like the night light, but I scaled it up real big, and because it's like the moon and the clouds, I thought it was like a nice light to add to the backdrop to kind of give it a little bit more dimension, which I think it turned out really cute. But then I add a little bit more, a couple more lights, I think, and then a bench, and then that's pretty much it for the stage. And I think it turned out really cute, but you have to let me know what you guys think, and if you decide to like change it up or do your own kind of stage decorations, if you download this, please let me know. But then we're actually coming towards the end of the video, so I just want to say thank you for watching this. And again, if you have any tips for me on how I can be doing this better, please leave those in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe so that way you don't miss any more of my builds that I plan on doing. And then here at the end, there's just going to be a video tour going over all the different areas inside the build that might not have made it into actually getting to see them furnished. So please stay tuned for that, and thank you guys, and until next time, bye!